This is the first video in the new topic of cells. And to start off this topic, we're going to go back in time to the 1600s. So at this time, this was the end of the Renaissance period when there was a big shift away from religion to moving towards science and discovering new ideas and accepting new things. Whereas for the last 1,000 years, really, people had believed and followed really similar traditions and not much had changed. So there was lots of science going on at the time. And one thing that people were developing were the first microscopes. So you can see a picture here. This is a microscope that a guy called Robert Hooke invented. And he used a microscope to look at living things for the first time. Because before this, all they knew about living things is what they could see with their own eyes. And we didn't really know what was making up the bodies of animals or the organs of plants. And when he started looking at living things, this is the kind of picture that he saw. So this was him looking at some cork, which is wood from a cork tree. And he was amazed to see that actually a piece of wood was made up of lots of these tiny individual sections. And when he kept looking at lots of different living things, he kept finding these different sections. And he published it in a book, and the book was amazing. It was a bestseller because for the first time, people discovered that living things are made up of these tiny building blocks. And he called these things cells. So to define them, we can call cells as they're the basic unit of life. Or in other words, they're like a building block. So every living thing, and ever since the 1600s, every living thing that we've looked at with microscopes is always made of cells. So we know that that's one thing all living things have in common. So here are a few more examples of what some cells can look like. Here we've got some cells from the cheek of an animal. And in the next one we've got some plant cells. And these are from an onion. If you slice a really thin slice of an onion, this is what it looks like. And then you've probably seen these as well. These are red blood cells from humans. So we can see here that that all organisms are made up of lots of cells. But another thing that they discovered when looking through a microscope is that some organisms are actually just made of one cell. So some organisms are made of only one cell. And we call these unicellular organisms. Uni means one, like a unicycle. So we can see here's one cell, and these organisms are so small that they're microscopic. and we need a microscope to even see them. And these ones are too. We can see lots of individual organisms here. So each little rod, that's a different organism. So the opposite of unicellular, we call multicellular. And these are organisms that are made of lots of cells, and these are the ones we can see with our own eyes. So all the animals, well, most animals, and plants, all the larger organisms. The next question to ask though is, why are cells so small? Why isn't a big animal, like a human, why aren't we just made of one cell? Why are cells so small? Well, the main reason for that is because of nutrients and wastes. So every cell needs to get nutrients from the outside world, and the nutrients have to come in through the outside layer of the cell, and to get through into the middle, they need to travel through the liquid, and that takes time. So for a really big cell, it takes a long time for nutrients to get into the middle to support the cell. But if an organism is made of lots of small cells, then it doesn't take long for nutrients to get in to each cell, because nutrients can pass all around the outside of the cells, and they can enter from every direction. So nutrients, if we have small cells, it's a lot easier for nutrients to get in. And on the other hand, when wastes are coming out of the cell, it's exactly the same. So when wastes come out of the cell, it takes a long time for wastes to get out of a large cell. They have a long way to travel. But for small cells, wastes can easily travel from the middle and then leave the cell. So that's the main reason cells are so small. Nutrients and wastes, the time to travel through the cell is less. And another name we give this is, we say that the surface area of small cells is a lot bigger than larger cells. So we can see here, if we look at the surface area, so if we calculate it using maths, the total surface area of all these small cells is a lot bigger than the total surface area of one large cell. And that lets nutrients and wastes easily go in and out. So small cells have a greater surface area.